Good evening, everybody. This is the Hashtagonist. Before we start this episode, I want to give you a heads up that we had some significant audio issues on this episode, so the quality might not be as high as you have gotten used to. I think the conversation is still good enough to put it up, but I can understand if the listening experience is not top notch, so I apologize for that. But I hope you still enjoy the conversation, and see you next week. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 54th episode of the Hashcast, the best episode I have done so far. And as always, I have a guest way cooler and way more interesting than myself. And today I have a guest who is also making so much cool shit, I can't even start to begin what she's done so far. Megan Fox, how are you?
Hi, I'm pretty good. I'm here, and it's Friday.
It is Friday.
That's awesome.
And I'm taking up all your free time on a Friday, but I know you were secretly still working, so...
Yeah, I'm an indie game developer, so
yeah. Hopefully you'll see this as a little break from your busy schedule, because I know we have a lot of stuff to talk about all the cool stuff you're doing. But Meg, we've known each other for a while now. We've been Twitter mutuals for like a while, actually, like a couple of years probably at this point. Yeah. For people who might not know exactly who you are, who is Megan Fox, and what is it that you do?
Oh, so Megan Fox is me. I am Megan Fox, and I have been in game development for a decade or something now. I started with a company I've never heard of called Eidolon just a decade ago, and they were a startup, and they died, and then I went to work for a company I have heard of, NetDevil, which you haven't heard of, but you have heard of Lego Universe, which they made. Mm-hmm. And then Lego Universe got canceled, and they actually did really well. I got laid off. And then I founded Blast Games, at which point I made Jones on Fire and Hot Roof as part of Fist, and now I am making Skateboard.
Cool. I've seen a little bit of Let's Go. I've been reading up on the game this afternoon. I read some articles, so if I ask you any questions that you've answered already 1,000 times, then I apologize, but there's probably someone out there who has not heard the story yet. I want to hear about the game right away, so people kind of have an idea on what you're working on right now. Skatebirds. What is Skatebirds?
Skatebird is a game about little birds that try their best. It's about skateboarding birds and their big friends. Their big friends' life sucks. They're always at work, terrible job. They hang up their board. They don't park anymore. And the little bird is going to change all of that and fix the big friend's life with the power of skateboarding.
That is pretty amazing. Because I heard that the idea for this game happened when you just saw a GIF or a video on a friend's computer about a bird riding a skateboard, and then I guess your developer's brain turned on?
Yeah, pretty much. My partner pulled up a video of just a little bird that was skateboarding on, a little... if I say tech deck, you know what I mean? I guess people listening, maybe you don't know what I mean by tech deck. A tech deck is the proper name for those little tiny fingerboards. Mm-hmm. Tech deck is one of the particular brands, etc. So it really doesn't matter. Yeah. But still, he pulled that up, and I can actually show you exactly. Let's see if this works. We're going to get to in a second. So... Can you see a bird?
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, this specific video / GIF is what my partner pulled up, and it was like, holy crap, this is the best game ever! And then I started making it.
That is pretty sweet. So, okay, now I'm back. Oh, I see myself now. Let me just switch that back real quick. There
we go.
There.
So yeah, he showed that, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And yeah, that was.
Yeah, but it's one thing to get an idea for like mechanics, like oh that's fun, a skateboarding game. But then you broaden this out to like you just had drop a quick line of lore and Like I know there's a lot around this game. Like where does that come from? Because it feels like there's a story there about the big friend that hates their life and their job, and the little friend making everything a little better.
Well, so I mean, it's kind of multifaceted. The game mechanics come from I loved Tony Hawk
Hmm.
when I was growing up and all else. They don't really make them anymore, or I mean, they do, but we don't talk about those games. Uh, skate gaming has always been one of these cool, amazing things. Because as a kid, I was not graceful, we'll say, and the idea of me skateboarding was hilarious. My brother skateboarded, but I did not. I would have fallen. So in fact, I did fall off my ass repeatedly. That was as far as I ever got. But playing Tony
Hmm.
Hawk, I get a cool skateboarder, and it was fun, and that was a way of participating in the culture and music and everything else. And that was super cool to me.
Hmm.
And then that kind of morphed into skate, which was also cool, but like in a slightly less cool way because now it was more realistic. And yes, that was cool, but it was less cool than doing a sick kickflip over a helicopter gap between buildings. So like, and that's kind of where skate games evolved. They got more and more realistic and less cool. And now Skater XL is like the least fun, best skateboarding game
Yeah.
ever. It's like super sim, and that's amazing, but not really what I want. And I'm trying to make a game more for all of the other people like me that kind of got more and more shaved off. And the games got more and more. That's that side, and the other half is, uh, I mean, to put it lightly, we live in kind of a dark
Hmm.
age right now, as far as political pressures and the rise of fascism and literal actual Nazis are a thing again. It's like, wow, okay, maybe now is the time where we could really use a cute little bird that just just play a cute little bird game and think about rising up and doing your best and those themes, but also in a soft and nice way that is maybe not, you know, uh, the TV news. Yeah. So that's kind of why I'm going more cute.
Yeah.
But the reason Skateboard tries their best and is that we do live in an era where it's kind of important to
Hmm.
resist and do what you can. It's just that most of us are in a position where functionally there's very little that we can do that's going to like make a big difference in and of ourselves. But my hope is that by putting out a story that how even a little skateboarding bird that all they can do is one little goofy trick, how they can make it, however small, if they all work together with their other bird friends, make a big difference. I'm hoping that that theme
Hmm.
resonates with folks in an important
Yeah,
sense.
and I love that whole thought behind it. But how far do you like push something like that? Because when you see the trailer, when you see just the screenshots, that it doesn't like ooze off the screen, right? That is just the behind the scene. Maybe that's we'll see that more in release. I know there's all kinds of mysterious, cool stuff coming up this summer where you're gonna really get to show off this game. Do you keep that in mind when you push a game onto market like this, or is that a huge fear because we also live in a highly volatile gamer market where that doesn't always go over well?
Well, uh, whenever you're making a game like this, well, whenever I like this, I am much less concerned with slapping people over across the face with the resonance.
Hmm.
If you're going to pick up on them, you're going to pick up.
Hmm.
They are there as threads to be found and experienced, and hopefully be resonant with folks that could use a bit of that. But if you aren't into that part of the game, I'm hoping you'll just enjoy it as a cool skateboarding
Hmm.
like birds. Maybe you're someone who's for whatever reason, not into politics. That's a whole other thing. But still, maybe you just really like cute little birds. It's a cute little skateboarding.
Hmm.
Maybe you're just really into skating and haven't been found skating games. This is also just a
Hmm.
relatively accurate is the wrong. Physically accurate? Physically
Yeah.
accurate. Let's go with physically
Yeah.
accurate skating game. There's a lot there to dig
Yeah.
in. So the way I tend to plot, tend to build my narratives is layers.
Hmm.
I tend to build themes that are relatively deep, resonant, and so on and so forth. But those tend to be only if you dig. Simple example: Top 10 Roof, my game 2 games ago. There was a lot there about racism, classism that most people missed because the read most people had of the game is that it was a game about I heard a piece of poop and I think I heard like a Mars bar, an Ascension Mars bar. The character was a brown cuboid in a hat. So some people never even got the fact that Jones was a curl, and some people never got the fact that Jones was a person.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with that. I engage with my games at whatever level you feel capable of.
Yeah, that is interesting, and I love that. I always love when people put something in the world where they can put in its whatever they want, and it still functions on its own. So I hope people pick up on everything that goes behind the scenes. But I want to see a little bit where all this creativity and all this skill comes from, because you just lined out like all the stuff you've done, but before you got into games dev altogether, like. Is this something because you went to school for? Because it's relatively new that you can actually go to university for game design and stuff. That wasn't always the case. What was your origin story to get into games dev?
Well, I definitely didn't go to school. Whenever I was 6, I bet my grandpa that I would make video games for a living, and I was 6, so I didn't know that. Crap, I would have won so much money. But I mean, kid me would have bet for like a transformer or something. Then I would have gotten a transformer. Adult me wouldn't have had money for that. But still, you know. So whenever I was 11, my mom got me a book that was C programming for rookies. That got me into basic development, like not games, just doing printf. Think like looking at command console and text pops out and it asks you, do you have a butt? Yes, no, and you say yes, and it says ha 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 butt, or you know, just as dumb as you can possibly imagine, and a couple of notches more dumb, stuff like that was 11. And then 14, I finally got a book on how to do games programming. And this was back in the era where books were like hot shit. The internet existed, but you had to know right where to go to find the information. Yeah. And I got it was Tricks of the Game Programming Gurus by, I believe, Lamoth, who, a lot of his books suck, but I mean, it's part of what got me in it. I think it's cool. And that was my first exposure to stuff like pointer, writing to memory. And for the longest time, the number 0x7000000 was this mystical thing. I had no idea what it was. I couldn't figure out why my code didn't work. So I had to go to IRC, find the Gamedev channel, find a person who was an asshole, but like just enough of not an asshole to also answer my question. Like this was back in the 90s and this was IRC, so there were a lot of assholes that were somewhat helpful, but also assholes. It's kind of the 90s, Gen X. Hooray! So that got me to the point where I'd actually make graphics and run games. And then that was high school, and at one point in my high school, for my programming class, which I took not because I needed programming at that point, because I wanted an excuse to do schoolwork. And at some point in that class, like half the class was playing a game that I had made, so you could stand at the back of the classroom and see it on a monitor. It was awesome and probably frustrating for the professor. But and that was me at 14, and then there was some stuff that kind of distracted me when I was an adult. Came back around to it in my late 20s, and that's when I got the job at Eidolon, like somewhere in my later 20s. Between that, I actually went to school twice. Once for computer science, which was right before .com, and I got a good job. I thought, oh man, this is so cool. I'm making $18 an hour with no benefits. I don't need school. But I didn't drop out. I just stopped going. So I eventually left school with a sub 1.0 GPA, which was just great. And then .com happened, and I lost my job. And then I had to go back to school later because I was finding a job. And at that point, I had to go to college because I couldn't readmit to my actual school because my GPA was too low. And I actually had to change my major to mathematics because my GPA was still so low for that school to readmit me. They wouldn't do it without night courses. So that's why I'm a mathematician, a computer scientist. But as it happens, a math degree ended up a lot useful. It was a lot more broadening as a subject, and it was just more interesting. And it's also more useful to me in games. I use linear algebra, all that stuff that I would cover. I also use finite mathematics, and that stuff probably wouldn't. So it was good. It's just very circuitous.
Well, that is,
and
quite the path into So you said like you made $18 an hour. You felt like you're on top of the world. What was the moment where you felt like, okay, this is actually going to be a career for me? Was it right away then, or was that later?
Oh God, no! The $18 an hour, I was working for a company called Rogue Wave, which either no longer exists or exists. I was a tech support analyst, I believe my job title, for database middleware, which is a whole concept of product that I essentially doesn't exist anymore. This was back whenever you were interacting with SQL databases, and no one knew how to handle SQL. So ours was a middleware that existed in C++ that allowed you to interact with C++ database in a SQL database, C++, and made the calls and so forth. Now, this either doesn't exist because who the hell can't just make SQL calls directly if they're a programmer, or it exists as probably an open source library times a million different versions of it that you just go and understand. So, like, it just doesn't exist anymore. That was just my first job as a programmer, and me making $18 an hour and thinking I was hot shit was because I was a fucking idiot at 18. My definition of success at that point was I could walk down the street to KFC and I could order anything, or not KFC, Burger King. I could order anything from the Burger King I wanted, didn't have to pay the price. And I'd come back with like 4 boxes of chicken fries. Like, Jesus Christ, I had low standards. I was like, and I didn't have any benefits, and I didn't know why that mattered at the time. So it's just, it was a good job for a college dropout, I guess. But especially after .com hit, that was like, maybe I should set my standards a bit higher. And the hourly was good. And now as an indie, I pay myself like $11 an hour. So monetarily, I was doing better than a lot of people. But like by today's terms, as a programmer, I can probably make a lot more. And also, it's probably more important to have benefits. So, yeah.
Yeah, but now you get to do whatever you want.
As far as when I felt like I had made it was probably when I got the job. To answer finally answer your question, that was whenever Playwell Studios came Playwell. They were hired, and walking into the studio, and there were people running scooters around, giant art on the wall, converted warehouse. There was a free drink fridge and free catered lunches. Like, oh man, this is so cool! The AAA life, yeah. And I mean, it was cool, and it was cool to do that. I'm glad to have done that. I'm glad I'm not there now because I like what I'm doing now better. But that was kind of the moment where it was like, yeah.
That is pretty sweet. But like you have your own studio now, new game in the work. I hear that there's some big stuff coming up for you. Anything you can are willing to share with what we're gonna see from you soon?
All I can say is that Skateboard is super excited to be invited to participate in. Why am I?
It's kind of cool.
Kind of funny. Kind of funny games. Kind of funny games. I don't know why I think you're Kentucky. But yeah, the Kind of Funny Games E3 showcase. Skateboard will be participating in that. Beyond that, we cannot say. Beyond that, you should watch the showcase. It'd be awesome.
Everybody should watch the showcase. How did that happen? Do you call Greg, or did Greg calls you? Do you have anything to show? How does it work?
Greg put out a thingy for, hey, you got a cool game? You want to pitch it to me to be on this cool thing we're doing? You should tweet me. And I tweeted Greg, and he said, oh my god, that sounds awesome. And, well, there we go.
That's easy.
Skatebird is a really easy game to pitch. You send a GIF, and you say, Skatebird is a game about being a skateboarding little bird that tries their best. And, you understand the game. It's very easy sell.
It is a super easy sell because it stands out pretty much immediately. How's the reaction been so far? Is it the biggest thing you've done so far, or?
Easily the biggest. Whenever we announced it on November of last year, it was right before we were going on a vacation, and I was kind of worried because holding out one day before we leave. I'll send it out. It'd probably be a little minor thing. So I can run minor press from the road. And then we hit 60,000. 60,000 views. I think it was 60,000 views before the first 24-hour period, 80 if you included YouTube, and then it was like 100,000 views by early YouTube. Now we're up to, I don't know, like 140,000 views, 160 or something, thousands of retweets. Like, it was huge, and it just exploded. And I'm running this from the road as we're driving to Orcas Island, which is a little tiny island in the middle of in the Pacific near Seattle. And you take 2 or 3, is it 2 ferries and a bridge, or 3 ferries? Something like that. You take a bunch of boats and a bunch of bridges to get there, and the Wi-Fi gets more and more spotty as you go further out. So I'd like pop in and get drowned in retweets and notifications and shit and go, oh my god! And then I take a picture of a seagull and I'd post the seagull, and then I'd lose signal again. They'd come back. I was checking my tweets while I was sitting on a beach and watching the sunrise. Like, it was cool. It was also kind of impinged on the vacation a little bit, but I suck at taking vacations. It's gonna happen anyways.
It's funny because last week I had Alex win, and he made the Terra Genesis, and also he posted his game before going on a road trip to Australia for a year, and then he had the almost exact same experience where it just took off. But he uploaded the game, and now you're the same. You just, I'll just tweet it out and see what happens. But that is so funny. What's the how does it feel though? Like you've already been successful. You've brought games to launch before, but do you feel like, oh, this could be it? This could be the one. How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, saying I'm successful is a stretch. I mean, I have released, I and my teams have released 3 games, and Jones on Fire eventually made back the cost more than I ever thought it would. Hot Tin Roof, I'm comfortable saying it eventually made back the cost 12 years later. Spartan Fist is in a very deep hole, and I have no idea. So calling me successful is like,
a successful creator, maybe.
Yeah, successful creator. I do think that Skatebird has the potential to be the one. As it, am I certain it's going to happen? No. Like, all of the metrics are looking good, and I think I could probably push, like, I mean, if the game were done and I weren't going to release a steaming pile of poop, I could probably push the button right now and have like a relatively successful launch. I think I could do air quotes. I'm hoping that after we've done all of the by early next year. You know, I did say 2019-ish in the trailer. By the way, 2019-ish probably means early 2020. So, spoilers.
It's a PS5 launch title, right?
No, oh god. No, PS5's further out. Whenever all of that happens, I think it will get pretty well. But I mean, all I can really do is look at the indicators and go, oh, yeah, our wish lists look good and our views look good. And whenever I tweet, I usually get 10 and that's pretty cool. And sometimes they go viral. I get like a viral tweet or once a week, which is more than in previous games made. So like, all of the indicators are beyond that. I really can't say. I'm just kind of doing my thing and hoping for the best.
What I always find interesting is like you're just throwing out words like, oh, the metrics and indicators and blah blah, and I can like, you're a game developer. You went to school with a mathematician. To bring a game to market, all of a sudden you have like a need for all these other skills, because it's one thing to like code game together and do the graphics and do the art and put all together, and then it's bringing it to market. Do you have like, is that something you have a team for? Is it just something you have to figure it out yourself?
Well, I mean, it's varied. Skatebird. So Skatebird, I can accurately say I'm doing almost everything myself. That doesn't like the person on there. Alex Price is the artist that's doing Bird, like the eponymous Skatebird. That's his character. Like, he did the mesh and the animation. So he is clearly a part of it. I mean, in general, I have done C, so not to erase people. In general, including marketing, website, the trailers. I've done all the videos myself, and the current one I'm making for you, which is going to be a new video, which is probably not a surprise. I mean, going to having a video with kind of, I mean, good luck. Yeah, it's coming together really well. So all of that's skills that I've learned over however many years, 6. Like when I started, go back and look at the listeners can go back and look at the Jones on Fire
Yeah.
trailer. First one ever did, and I'm actually still happy with it. Most of what I did right was I had a good concept, stuck with it. I understood the importance of using music. I had good music thanks to Michael. Michael Nielsen was at that. So I met Michael at the game jam where Jones on Fire initially got conceived or started. He was like, "I want to work with you." I was like, "Dude, I can't pay you. It would be immoral." It's like, "No, it's okay. I want it." It's like, "But I can't pay you. I don't really want it." And he finally is like, "Just come on, let me do a thing." It's like, "Okay, you're a composer. You want to do music? Okay, well, we'll see how this works." And so he did really cool music track, which is what you hear in that trailer. And I worked a trailer that worked well with the trailer and it's in ways. It's cute. It worked. I did Hot Tin Roof's trailer. I want to say I outsourced. I believe I hired. Sorry, I don't remember your actual. I want to say I did that one, and then my mom died like 4 months before the game launched, and so what was supposed to just be the date announced trailer became the launch trailer because that was but crunching because that was a really dark period. So yeah, that launch I didn't do a video for because I was also then that whole thing finished, and I did Spartan Fist. Spartan Fist, I also did kind of a mix. The first announced trailer I did for Spartan Fist, and I hired out to Imagos, IMOS. The film company. They did the live action trailer, which was fucking awesome. If you ever want a live action trailer, you gotta get them. They're very reasonable to work with. It's like it'll probably be your only exposure working with Hollywood, and it's like high drama, and there's people on set that have threatened to like, oh my god, it's gonna come together. But every trailer Imagos has ever done has come together. If you've ever seen a Devolver anything, all of Devolver's live action videos are done with Imagos. They're cool. Anyways, so there I hired out, and I also hired out for PR on Spartan Fist. That was Dana Trabella with Spoken Bill. I kind of did this mix of hiring people for something, learning myself, and by hiring people, I learned stuff about how to do things. And like just by working with Imagos, I learned a lot about how Imagos puts together trailers and so framing, stuff like this. So by working with all of those people, I gradually kind of built a skill set where when I started this, I would have said I was not an artist. Now I would say, I'm a prop artist. I'm okay. I can't do characters. I can do a rock or a book or whatever. When I started this, I would have said, oh, well, I can't really do video editing at all. Now I would actually potentially work for someone else to make the trailer. I like that aspect. I have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't do anything with After Effects just because it's cheap. Like people use After Effects well, and I respect the craft. But for what I like, I go for more of a spike low editing or about camera angles and how it works. That's more the craft. Yeah, so it's kind of a mixture. But yeah, you put all of this stuff in time, and the only reason I can do all of this stuff now is I've been for 6 years. I had some very rough skills at the start, and there was also programming, and just kind of dived in head first on the rest. Sometimes it worked great. Sometimes it didn't work great. Like there's the Spartan Fist trailer that was a sing-along. The voice actress, she did she's awesome. She did great. I just didn't know how to use her work and make anything good. And that was a experience. So you try. Sometimes it works.
Well, I think it's incredibly impressive how you just manage to do all of that and not lose your damn mind, like, because man, there's a lot of stress involved in getting all these things up. There are here and there, but everything you've done so far, like you've seen the world of game development and like the big shows. Do you ever still have those moments like where you're like, I can't believe this is my life? Like, are you at a point where you're like, this is what I've, because you've wanted to build games since you were 6 years old, you said. Do you ever feel like, oh shit, I can't believe like I'm actually doing that?
Oh yeah, I feel that way about a lot of things. Like earlier, walking across, like I live in a I live in basically the country. It's an hour from Tacoma. It's our neighbor has a bunch of chickens. Can't see our neighbors. We're out in kind of the middle of nowhere on this big hill. Just walking across my property and realizing that I work out of a tiny barn. My office, what you see here, is a little barn. I'm on the second loft or loft. So the floor is actually this patched carpet. Just like I have like 10 or so different rugs, and like regular rug overlapped with plywood, stuff like that. This whole thing, this still makes me go, "This is my life. This is awesome." And then Gamedev, it sometimes do that. Whenever I walk into a trade show, whenever I do PAX, and you're there set up before the show starts, you're seeing like Microsoft and Sony, and whatever the latest free-to-play game that I don't give a shit about, but it's very big. Seeing all of these giants set up, and I'm over here going, "Yeah, I'm here too. Here's my thing. It's gonna be awesome." And then this time at E3, where PAX East was the first time I've ever made a game that never didn't have a line. Had a line past the end of the show. Someone actually snuck over and hid their badge, playing. Eventually, the enforcers chased me. And I was the only one in the booth that had that. It was awesome. It just stuff like this keeps making me go, "Holy crap! This is actually happening. Cool!" And yeah. So yes.
Well, that must be great. If you're a 6-year-old, would be looking at everything you were doing now, would you blow her mind?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So 6-year-old me thought that game making was. So I think I simultaneously thought of it as AAA, like big team. But what inspired me most was the work of some of the most people won't know, Richard Garriott, Lord British, made the Ultima series of games. Specifically, I grew up playing Ultima 7. Ultima 6 is often cited as his best game. I was right at the age bracket where I went Ultima 7 instead. I would have probably done Ultima 6, but getting Ultima 6 to run was like really fucking hard. And my kid me was not that good, where Ultima 7 was slightly easier, so yeah. But yeah, that game's what got me wanting games for a living. That and the first game editing I ever did, like Doom. People may or may not remember this. Doom used to have mod tools, but these are mod tools in the very vaguest of senses. They would let you hit the guns so that the guns had bullet explosives. It looked really dumb shit. You could also use them to do more kidney. Not that good. They did basic mapping. So between Doom was kind of that first exposure, and Ultima 7 was the first game for the one to. And again, that was made by.
I remember modding when I was a kid. It was a Duke Nukem 3D, where you could just change the values of the impact of the bullets. And then I think I ramped up the handgun, and if you would shoot like a pig, it would bounce across the entire universe, basically. So I was basically a hacker when I was a kid. That's what I'm saying, right?
Oh, totally. Duke Nukem was also the first game that I made a legit mod for, a month at least. I would be very surprised if anyone ever played it, but I made a mod for Duke Nukem where when you ducked, you could press a button, and you'd hear, "Oh, that felt good," and he left a shit mine. And if you went near the shit mine, it exploded into rockets. And I even played online with someone else, a friend down the street. And we used the shit mine mod. It was cool for 2 minutes or however long.
Those were the times. It was still considered extremely cool. You kind of touched on what inspired you to get in games and who. But do you have any people who have helped you in a way, or through either being a role model or being a coach or a mentor, or just open a door for you that you just had to go through? Who were the people who were your angels in this industry?
Well, I mean, part of it was Scott. First, Scott founded NetDevil. Scott, I'm bad. Scott. Shit, don't remember. Torch. Scott. Yeah. So Scott gave me a lot of advice. I was a young buck idiot programmer trying to get Scott to okay me to work on the project on the side. He not only did that, but then he actually took the time and a meeting. He scheduled a meeting in his office, just me and him, to talk about how to start a studio, do what not to do, etc. I got a call from Kelly Santiago, who was one of the founders of that game.
Mm-hmm.
She took the time to actually explain a lot of the stuff. What so so. And there were probably other people too that I've since forgotten. But yeah, there were some early mentors that they were just like the one conversations or the little that bit of leeway that before. Without those, I don't know, especially those two. Like the idea that Kelly did this, and Kelly was kind of like me. She did this and it worked for her, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool! I can do this. Like, it's just those little moments help it out. And I mean, to be clear, it's not like they gave me genius advice that I then executed on and became a master of the field. They gave me great advice, which I fucking ignored because I was a goddamn idiot. And then I went off and did my own thing, which they specifically told me not to do, and it didn't work like they told me it wouldn't work. But still, these are the mistakes we make for learning how to run a business. Whenever I initially founded Glassbottom Games, I had this idea of how to pitch games to publishers, work on mid-tier stuff. And I would like get working as a developer making games based on IPs because so that's how
and like now that you're established and we talk about what a successful creator you are, and with a skateboard you're probably gonna make $1 million at least. Do you have like those little pockets of wisdom and advice for when people come up to you now, or do you grow in that yourself? Like, do you give talks, or do you go the extra mile there?
Yeah, I used to. I've done a lot of talks. I haven't done any recently. Mostly did it in the Colorado area. There was a Comic-Con there that I gave a lot of talks at. I talked to schools. I gave talks at a lot of classroom talks like that, and a lot of convention talks that kind of generalize mental stuff. Then, yeah, as far as the advice goes, usually the first advice I give is just you need to be making games. Like, if you want to make games for a living, your first step should be games. It's not about how do I get a job making games. Okay, are you making so many games it's becoming a problem in your life? Distract. Yeah. Well, okay, that's probably the drive you need to actually break it. And then the second advice I follow up that with is usually, oh, well, I don't know how. Well, okay, fail. The most important thing you can do in making is fail repeatedly, horrifically. Ideally in ways that you can like walk away from, but failing is how you learn. You just try things, and sometimes they work, and usually they don't. But you learn a lot more when they don't. And so go for it.
Yeah, well, that is pretty cool. I am looking forward to what you're gonna do with this game, but I'm also looking forward to because I feel you're the kind of person that is always working on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So, what do you see for yourself or the studio for like the short-term 5-year, 10-year plans?
Well, if Skateboard does well, I've got ideas for I could do that would involve snow. I could do expansions on it. Probably both. If Skateboard doesn't do well, I need to step back and look at it because the skateboarding part or the bird part. Because if the bird part is still resonant, I will probably make another bird because I really dig studios working like cute little 3D birds. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that would work as far as the visual branding forwards. Just my studio, you'll see if you go to the studio, you'll see Mission State.
Yeah.
We make absurdly cute. The absurdly cute is double entendre. By that I mean both absurdly cute and also absurd. Games that are both weird and cute and kind of have that narrative lower level that's there if you want to go digging, but otherwise it might just come off just experimenting with that space and cute and cozy. Seems interesting. I want to see how far I can push it. A lot of people have mentioned, have asked, well, would that be limiting as a studio? Sure, it's a limit, but limits as a studio are good. They're what encourage you to create. If you don't put limits on yourself as a creator, you're gonna tend to just follow the latest cool. Like, you're probably gonna find more interesting things if you set up artificial boundaries that really force you to go, okay, well, how? Like, for instance, if I wanted to make a shooter, well, I probably can't make a shooter as a bird that's also cute. Yeah. I mean, I could, but if it gets pretty weird pretty
Yeah.
fast. But, well, okay, well, if I really want to make Mercenaries 1, but done by an indie, well, how could I do that with birds? And also have a big queue. And what you get is probably something different. It's fine. It's not its own special cool thing. It's just that limit. I want to work with that and see what happens.
No, that's pretty cool. I'm very curious to see how you can put birds in all kinds of other games now that you have the bird flavor going on. What if the studio calls tomorrow and they say, Mike, listen, here's a bag of money, here's a desk, here's benefits, here's everything.
I show them the finger and give them back. I would rather do. So at this point, I would be much, much more interested in what I'm doing now, running my own destiny. Small creator. Small creators get more leeway.
Mm-hmm.
I can make cute, cozy games that don't necessarily have huge killer protagonists.
Yeah.
They don't have to have deep, weird stories. They don't have to have online. Most of games like this are really hard to.
Mm-hmm.
They exist, but like in weird little teams that get spun up within larger entities. For instance, is it Entangled? It's not. The game of the little guy who's made of red yarn.
Yarny?
But what's that? What's the game
Unraveled.
actually called? Unraveled. There it is. Unraveled. Unraveled. Two examples. There's also the game about the little robot Bob, who has a throw home and climb home. Whatever the other one is. Those two games. There are those cases, but they're so rare. Whereas what I'm doing, I can work with a less doing it, and I can also take swings at large corporate organizations that maybe I don't agree with how they're being run or people, and that's kind of hard if you're in the belly.
Yeah. How about the other way around? You're gonna launch and you're gonna sell like 12 million copies of your game.
I've actually thought about it. So I'm kind of stuck between. So if I get handed $12 million, I'm not thinking, wow, I'm rich. I'm thinking, wow, I have enough money to do this for 30 years and change nothing. So I'm kind of stuck between, well, do I put $30 million in the bank and then donate the rest of the proceeds forever to charity? Or do I donate a lot of it to charity and then reserve enough to hopefully keep doing this for another decade and hope another hit next decade? Or that balance. But there is not a world in which I get the $20 million and then hire 20 people and make a larger studio. I tried that. I've run a relatively big, but I've run a sub 10% size team with previous games. It was interesting, but was it really what I wanted to do? Like, you end up spending half your time as a manager, and I don't know. I would really be more interested in making larger games that take. Like, if I had $1 million, I could probably afford to spend 4 years instead of 3. And that means I can make indie Skyrim instead of indie Tiny Tony Hawk, or it opens up what I can do. That's more what would happen, not like.
What would be the thing you would if you had none of the limitations and you could just do it yourself? Say you had like your magic dev powers and you could still do it with like 2-3 people. What would be your game to make?
I guess it changes. What it's been for the long time is some kind of indie Morrowind, like specifically indie Morrowind. Morrowind, you go far enough back, and that was still when the Bethesda games were staying open world, very on you, but they were systemic in a way that allowed them to understand. Like the way you could use alchemy to totally break the game, just get a power up and let you jump across the world in a way that literally crashed the game, or that you could actually skill up your jump high enough to jump over city walls. Stuff like that was neat. It totally broke the game, but it was neat. And the reason it was neat was because the world was large enough to have these systems that were present enough in enough places that was interesting. I would like to make games slightly larger scale like that, or like the Deus Ex, not the later ones. Specifically, Deus Ex was still kind of large, but not too large. Systems like that. Whether or not I would make Deus Ex or Elder Scrolls or something else, like Mercenaries 1 was another example of a system-driven game that had a lot of to it. Really. But stuff kind of in that era. Another one kind sort of, was a game called Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Seriously, no. Prototype was a successor to Hulk, but Prototype took the kind of pure fun of Hulk and made it this angry, very dude-focused about going to kill innocent people. It's like, that takes some of the fun and wonder out of jumping across the city. Like, but still, stuff like that, or Spider-Man 2 is a good example. It's that kind of era.
Yeah. That'd be cool. There we go. I hope you get magic powers and you can make whatever you want. That would be pretty good. So we briefly talked about like the games you make and the kind of the messaging you try to put either behind it or in it or as a cherry on top. I always like to ask a question like, what have you put in the world that makes you feel like you made the world a better place? And it doesn't have to be necessarily games, but in your case, I think you try to express it at least through your games. What is the thing you're most proud of, and maybe not as like your biggest accomplishment, but like the best thing that you put in? What do you think has helped the most people or make people feel better?
In very literal terms, that would be not be hot. Self one for a lot of reasons. Michael, awesome soundtrack, both artists. Ellery. Sorry. Two artists, both very good. We have a lot of work, but that aside, that went on to be in the first Freedom Bundle that Humble did. This was right after Trump got elected, which went on to raise like $6.4 million. ACLU, Western Federation, Doctors Without Borders. So there were only 41 games in that, and I think if you did the math, 100 developers involved. And while, yes, a lot of that money was because of headliner Subnautica. As it happened, Subnautica ran out. Then it was unique games that we were still putting in. So no matter how you split that number, our game person was responsible for putting a shitload of money into some very noble organizations. So that, to me, is the thing that makes me happy. Not just because of raising the money, that's cool, because it proved that I can make cute, quirky, weird-ass games, and they can go on to socially important contributions to society. It doesn't mean that the game I make is going to give someone that moment of clarity done or whatever we mentioned, but unexpected. Like the Jones on Fire or two, not because it was important, but because I got a message from a friend of a player, and he tells me, my friend, she's not the type to contact you, but she found your game on the App Store. And this became work on the last several get. She played Jump on Fire. She was one of the only players I never designed it. So whenever you beat it, all the little goals just turned into little text. Good job, or whatever. But still, knowing that I was able to create a space for her that made her situation public truth, that's the other. The likelihood of it, like I said, I make it done, but I can probably give people comfortable places to shelter the world, and I hope those spaces messaging that means when they leave those spaces, they're going to go on to better people instead of worse people. It's like the reason Skatebird has the messaging of skaters are always the best. Because you may feel powerless and you may feel tiny, but maybe you can do just that one little thing. Sometimes that little that gets you on the path between bigger things, or maybe it matters to that one other person. No, but still, just that little bitty tiny bit of progress.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It's just great. So you have a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff coming up. What is the one thing you're like most nervous about in the upcoming months, and what is the thing you're most excited about? We'll start with the nerves first, so we can close out on the things you're excited about in this stage of game development.
The thing I'm most nervous about is that Valve is going to change their algorithm between now and when it launches, and the fact that all of my metrics are looking good, strong, that they're going to go, actually what mattered was the number of potatoes that you put on your store, and that's what drives sales now. The number of pictures of potatoes. Like, they're going to do some shit like that. It's going to be, oh my god, the game's failure doesn't have any potatoes at all. I made a game about birds. What was I thinking? That's like my number one. And I'm doing as much as I can to buffer against that possibility. Consoles, so on and so forth, multiple stores, but still, that's like my number one. So
that's one of those things like we as players almost never hear about, right? The algorithm of a store. Well, has Epic not brought you a bag of money to be exclusive on the Epic Store yet?
Nah. I still don't know if I would actually take the Epic bag of money. It would depend on how big the bag of money was. Like, they could conceivably give me a big enough bag of money, but given that... So I have a lot of players that have wishlisted on Steam. I have enough players that have wishlisted on Steam that I feel confident on Steam financially. Again, ignoring that horrendous possibility that
the potato scenario.
So I would feel like I was betraying those players if I started going to Epic and said, actually, we're Epic exclusive. All of your support you've done so far, fuck you. We're going to go with Epic because they gave us the fucking money. If I didn't have that kind of support on Steam, I'd feel much less bad. But I do, and they put their faith in the game in a very little way. I mean, it's just a wish list. Like, that's enough. That makes any sense.
No, it's interesting, and I asked it like half sassy, but it is something I wonder. Again, like from a dev standpoint, like there's benefits, but like I said, like I already have wishlist. Do I want to like let those people down? Because there was an article the other day where people were like, oh, we're never going to sell our soul, and it sounded a little bit like, there's a lot of people who have to take that bag of money, otherwise they might not.
Succeed. That's the. I mean, Stardew Valley, they're one of the devs. They recently bought I don't know what the deal is, but they actually got their rights back from Stardew Valley. Now they run their own. Cool, it's this neat story about how a developer ended. Now they're probably going to go on to be this huge powerhouse. It's super cool. No, sorry, that's Stardew Valley. This was wasn't it?
Terraria.
Yeah, it was Terraria, which has a similar story, but like 2 generations of games ago. Still, so it's cool that they're doing their thing, and I'm glad that they made that much money, and it's awesome that they're independent and that they're able to stay independent. But I know a lot of developers that are literally to the point where I am making a game, and I would love to make this game, but I have to feed myself, and I have a choice between starving or giving up. And it's like, I really don't want to make them feel bad about taking Epic money. It's fine. Take the money. It's one of the best deals in gaming right now. Go for it.
Interesting. I was curious to hear your perspective on that as well. What are you most excited about? Because that's what I kind of want to hear, the joy and the butterfly feelings.
The most excited thing, the thing I'm most excited about right now, beyond, oh my god, this game could actually maybe do well, is that, so I put out a call to fans of skateboard and bird people in general to send me sound files of their birds doing bird things. Part of that is we're getting a lot of sound calls, videos of birds that are deceased, that they're big are kind of sad about. And what we're doing is putting those into music videos. And I'm super excited to hear. I'm super excited to hear what Nathan. Nathan, by the way, is my composer. He's been my composer since the beginning at Lego Universe. He's fucking awesome. I hope I never lose him because he's like the best composer I know. Anyways, I'm super excited to hear a soundtrack. Period. But I'm super duper especially curious to see what he does. I have this bird call that like this person. It's their baby, and how he's going to work this in a way that go, oh, baby, but also make a good soundtrack around it. And it's like, I'm super excited to see how it comes out. The tracks we've got so far are fucking awesome, and they're just getting better. And he's got the most recent track, figured out a way to make birds beatbox, and it actually sounds good. And the whole thing is lo-fi hip-hop. And from the beginning, it was like, okay, so lo-fi hip-hop is good and it's based a lot on what samples you use. Well, we're kind of limited in what samples we can use because we can't pay for expensive ones. We don't really want human sounds anyways, so... Talking too much. So what if we could use bird samples? And we started with, well, we can use human samples from some videos and then work in bird samples. And he's moving more and more towards just having birds as the singers, which is super cool to me. And I'm super excited to hear how it all goes, which I'll find out, next year. We're in
First of all, that's mind blowing to come up with that. But I feel like getting that kind of input from your audience, like your pre-establishing audience by doing something like that, it almost feels like a secret sauce right now. Because I've seen this happen a couple of times where they're drawing in. What was the game? Falcon Age, I think, that you could send pictures of your pets and they would like generate them in the game on a poster or on a calendar or a screen. That is so smart. That is so clever. But you're taking this to another level by making a beatbox with those sounds. Like, that is something else. I am very curious about this game. Like, I was curious about this game before we started talking about it. I'm super curious about this game. Do you have any?
I mean, I don't want to.
Any launch dates or secrets or scoops that you want to throw out there when we're gonna see more of this? Well, we know a kind of funny showcase, I guess, but
yeah, the kind of funny showcase is going to be the next scoop. The scoop beyond that, I can tell you, that was probably pretty obvious already, is that when I said 2019-ish, I probably didn't actually mean 2019. If I thought it was going to release in 2019, I probably wouldn't have added the ish after. So, probably don't expect the game this Christmas. Big spoiler.
January 1st. Okay, got it. We'll get it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I've learned a lot about yourself, about the game development and everything else. Is there anything you want to, like I always end the show on podcast and chill, is there anything you want to plug, promote, and first of all, where can we find you? Because if we want to know more about game development, the game, or just want to see cool birds, where can we find you, Meg?
Well, to find birds, go to URL skate.bird.rocks. You can also Google skatebird. I guarantee it'll be on the first page. So there's actually a series called The Skatebirds from the 70s, which was this weird-ass live-action birds on roller skates thing. It may be in there too. I highly recommend clicking it. It's fucked up. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm GlassBottomMeg, at GlassBottomMeg. I think you can figure that out. And as far as things to plug beyond Skatebird, you'll hear about this stuff if you follow me, but I like to promote other games that are doing animals. The one I'm really excited about right now is a game called Minico's Night Market, which is a game. So it's essentially, imagine Stardew Valley, but instead of growing crops, you're growing cats.
Okay.
And also you can grow a racing cat and train a racing cat and ride a racing cat and race. And I don't know how any of this works, but I've seen it in the trailer and I want to know more.
I do also want to know that right away.
And that also you mentioned Falcon Age, which is a game that's out, whereas Minico's Market is not. Falcon Age is fantastic. If you want another bird game, I highly recommend Falcon Age. It's super cool, and they got the birds so good. But something that's not obvious, they have an adult bird and a young cute bird. Personally, I found the cute bird a lot cuter. I think people in VR like the bigger bird because it feels different in VR perspective, but I played it without VR, so different. There's a little hat you can put on the bird that's visible that keeps the bird as the cute small thing, which I think is very important. So now, but I highly recommend Falcon Age. It's super
cool. Well, thank you so much, Meg, for talking to me. Take some time out of your free Friday night. I hope you have some other cool plans this weekend. That I was definitely not the highlight of the weekend. For people listening, so follow Meg at GlassBottomMeg. It's on the screen, but if you're just listening, you know where to find her. And for me, I am the Hashtagonist, and this is the Hashcast, where I have a weekly show where I get cool guests like Meg and talk about their careers and all the cool stuff they do. So that's me, but you're already listening, so you know where to find me. Meg, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and if you're still listening, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week.
Thank you much.